Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's live learning event on the Grooper Config versus the Grooper Command Console. This is the second event in our Moving to the Grooper Web Client series, which is designed to give you insight on moving forward to newer versions of Grooper with confidence and clarity. Thank you for joining us. My name is Brad Blood, and I will be the moderator for today's event. If you have any questions, you can send them to us through the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we will answer your questions as time allows. Also, we're recording this meeting, and we will be sending a link out to it to everyone who registered for today's event. We will also be adding a recording of this video on our Grooper YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe to Grooper AI on YouTube to never miss a thing. All right, today's speaker is Randall Kiner, the Training and Curriculum Specialist here at Grooper. With a background in 3D digital media and video production and a ton of Grooper knowledge, Randall infuses a highly technical and demanding training curriculum with elegance and attention to detail. With a rare gift of communicating extremely technical nuances in a practical and straightforward manner, he's a true Grooper expert and a valued Grooper resource. Randall, take it away.
Thanks for that intro, Brad. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone being here. So what we're going to be doing, like Brad said, is looking at Grooper Config, which was the thick client application that allowed the configuration of repositories and Grooper services. And then we're going to be taking a look at it compared to GCC or Grooper Command Console, which is the means by which we do the same stuff with the new versions of Grooper that no longer have Grooper Config, and that's the application that will be used to do that. So without any further ado, I think what I'll do is just get out of this, and I'm going to hop into one of my virtual machines. And this is a server that has Grooper on it. It's Grooper 2023, which was the last version that used any thick client applications. And what I'm going to do is walk through creating a Grooper repository and adding a couple of services to it via Grooper Config. So to do that, what I'm going to do is just hop into Grooper Config. And what I'm going to do here is, like I said, first create a repository. So here's my property for repositories. I'm going to click this ellipsis button to pull it up, and I'm going to add a new repository, and I'm going to give it a name. So I'll just call this OKSDRKI0102. And oh wait, that's the actual server. This needs to be OKSDRKI01. That's the actual host name of the computer. And then I'll name the database what I was just using. So name it after the host name, and I'll make this 02 since I already have an 01. And I don't need to bother giving it a username and password here because it'll pass my credentials to the environment. So if I test this, it says that there is not a database that currently exists, so it needs to be created. So it hasn't been initialized, which is an important step in this process, which is something we now need to do. So once the connection is made, we can see it's not initialized, and we need to click the initialize button. So what this is going to do is write all the tables to SQL for the Grooper environment, and we're also going to pass it a UNC path for the file store. So in here, I'll give it a name. I'll name it just like I named the database, and I'll give it a storage path. So what I'll do here is go into my Explorer. I'll go to where I'm putting my file stores. I'll actually make a new folder, name it the same as everything else, and I'll go into its properties. I'll go to the sharing and pull out this path, and I'll put that in here, and I'll execute. So this is again going to initialize the environment by adding the tables to SQL and the files for a default environment here. And just like that, it's created. So if I wanted to, I could actually go into Design Studio, for example, and I could change my repository. Oh, how did I do this in the old one? Oh, I have to set the default. So if I were to come in here and set this as my default, after clicking OK, I could change this drop down here and save. And now when I run Grooper Design Studio, it doesn't have a license, so it's going to bark at me about that. And here I am in my Grooper environment. This is just a raw Grooper environment, nothing to look at here really. Now, because 2023 did have the web client as well, if I wanted to connect to this repository through the web, I would first need to go into my IIS manager and come to my application pool, and I would need to recycle it or refresh it. And with that done, if I were to pull up a browser, I could go to the localhost grouper, and here's my environment. Now this is going to be the O2, which was the default, but with the web client, I could come in here and switch really easily via that button at the top for switching repositories. So that's that. Now the other thing I wanted to do is set up a couple of services. So if I go to the edit services command in Grooper Config, usually when I create a new environment, I want to always set up a license, or not a license, but a activity processing service and a import watcher. So by going to the edit services command, I would install a import watcher and click OK. And here's a property grid with stuff I might want to configure. If I wanted to schedule imports, etc., I could set those up. And with that, I could just execute. Well, I need to put in my password and stuff. So with that done, I can execute that. It'll add the service. We'll see it's got a little red dot, meaning it's not started. So I'll start it there. It'll go yellow, meaning it's starting up. And it's still red because I probably put in my password wrong, but you get the idea. The other thing I would need to do here is make an activity processing service. And with a queue, if I had queues in my environment, I could set those up. I could give it a number of threads. We usually want to set this to how many threads the system has. And you want to consider that when setting it up, because you don't want to give it so many threads that the service is eating up everything in the environment, but that's a different topic. And same thing here, I'll put in my username and password. Maybe I'll put it incorrect this time, and I'll execute. So that will add the service. And let's see if I can start it now. I probably still put it in wrong. Anyway, that's not the point here. This is just walking through. This is how we do this in Grooper Config. So if I wanted to, I could, uninstall these. If I were to go to like Grooper again in the Design Studio Thick clients, I could come in here to say the Machines tab. And if I were to select this guy here, I have to run as admin. That's an old thing. Oh, well. Anyway, you could see that in the Machines tab, I've got these two services here. I could click on them. I could edit them, etc. We'll see a mirror to this in the thin client as well. So with that done, unless there's any questions about how we did it the old way with Grooper Config, I'll move on to showing this with GCC. Any questions, Brad?
Yeah, we actually did get one question, and Hassan asked, is Design Studio available in Grooper 2025?
No, that's like the whole point. So the modernization of Grooper moving forward with like what we talked about in the webinar a month ago, we're trying to bring a lot of power and flexibility to what Grooper can do, and moving to a thin client was the way to go. If you missed that webinar, please feel free to go back and you can understand what we're doing with Grooper moving forward, etc. So with Grooper in 2025, there's no more thick client at all. So there's no Grooper Config, there's no Grooper dashboard, there's no any of those attended client applications. There's no Grooper Design Studio. All of it's done through the thin client via a browser like Chrome or something. The reason the thick client has gone away entirely is because supporting a thick client and a thin client simultaneously was just not what our development team thought was going to be the most efficient and best way to move Grooper forward at all. So it's all done through the thin client. And we're going to see GCC in here in just a minute, and we'll see how we interact with that. Does that help clarify that?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'll just get out of this system, and I'll hop over to my virtual machine that has Grooper 2025 on it. And let me pull something up here. One moment. All right, thanks for your patience. Okay, so from my environment here where Grooper is installed, I would want to do what I just did in the other environment, but via GCC. So first, I'll just bring up Grooper via the browser so we can see the thin client. And I'll do the same thing. And this is going to be Grooper 2025. And I've got a bunch of stuff here from other work I've been doing, but we can see that this is my environment. If I were to click this repository button up here at the top, I could come and pick another repository and switch it over. And so here's this right here. This is 25. But what we'll do is look at GCC and how we're going to use it. Now, there's a couple of ways you could get to GCC. I have a shortcut here to it from my environment. So GCC is actually located in the C drive, or this is where it was installed. So I'll go to the program files, BIS, Grooper, and here is GCC. So I just created a shortcut to that in the start menu. Now, also, if you wanted to, you could do this through PowerShell because GCC is going to open up in a standard command prompt. But if I wanted to, I could actually go to PowerShell and do this. And what is cool about either of these is like with a command prompt, you could use .bat files. And with PowerShell, you could obviously use like .ps1 files. And there's a lot of power that you can get from doing this because Grooper Command Console, or GCC, is just that. It's a command line interface with doing the stuff that we would normally do in Grooper Config from past versions. So if I wanted to do / there, I could go to the program files. Do I have to do that? No, I think I'd do it with maybe a double quote. Yep. And then I could go to BIS, and then I'd go into Grooper, and then I would do gcc.exe. Maybe I don't. Let me see where it is here. I think it is just gcc.exe. Maybe I'm missing a command. But anyway, you could do this through PowerShell. That's the main point here. But with a shortcut like this, I just open it up in a command prompt, and it's going to be the same interaction. The main difference I was just trying to explain is that you could do a lot of automation with what we might do in Grooper Command Console or GCC via using something like a .bat or PS1 file. It's up to you, however you want to do it. Now, the first thing I want to do with GCC is point out probably the most important command we would use with GCC, which is help. So if we type in help, we're going to get a list of options that we can get help for. So in doing what we're going to do with this, we need to create a new repository. So if I were to look at this here, I'm going to expand this so I don't have line wrapping there. I would want to get information on maybe connections, databases, etc. So I'm going to do help databases. And if I spell it right, help databases. And I'm going to get a list of commands that have to do with database stuff in GCC. So I've got create, delete, and list. So what I want to do is do a create command. So I'll do databases create. And then if you look here, we've got some template information about how we would do this. So when we see something like this that's in these angle brackets, this is required information. And then the stuff in the square brackets is considered not required. So we don't have to do that there. Now, if I were to come in here and do the server name, which is OKCSTRKI. No, this is, what is the name of this one? OKCS. Yeah, okay. So OKCS TRA 2025. And so that's the server name. The database name, I might call this Kynerd, or maybe I'll do 2025 rkynerd test. And then if I wanted to pass it a username and password, I could do that in one of two ways. So if I were to just start typing it out here, it's going to show it. Now I don't want to show my password. So what I want to do is pass it a question mark. So I'll do this and then a question mark. And then it's going to put me into this prompt where it will obfuscate my password. So I can do that. And then login failed. Let's see. Oh, spell my name right. And then BIS, that should be correct. I think if I just leave this blank even, I don't even have to pass that through. So there's the database created successfully. So if I were to clear this out, I could do databases list. What was it? Help databases, and it's databases list. Oh, and the server name. So databases list, STRA 2025. And I think that's it. I guess this is just going to list every database, which I might not need it to do. I have to quit out of that. That's the wrong thing there. So let's do databases list OKCSTRA 2025. And there's all of our databases. So here's the one that I just made for myself. Now, what I can do is continue with my creation of the repository. So if I clear this out, I'll do help, and we can see that we've got a database made, but we need to make a connection. So let's do help connections, and we get a bunch of commands here that we can use. So I want to first come in and add a connection. So I'm going to do connections, add the server name, the database name, and then a username and password. So let's get that done. We'll do connections add, right? Yeah. connections add. Server name is OKCSTRA 2025. And the database is, what was the name of it? It was 2025 rkinerd test. And I can see that with that done, a connection to that has been created successfully. But now I want to initialize this environment. So if I look at this command, it's connections init, and then the connection number and the repository name with the storage path. So I need to get the connection number. So let's do connections list. Okay. And I can see that my repository that I created, new repository, is number 10. So my init is going to be connections init, and then I believe it's connection number, which is 10, and the repository name and a storage path. So it doesn't have a name, so I'm going to pass it one, and then I give it a storage path. So I'll do, let's call this the same as the database name. So I'll do 2025 rkinerd test, and then a storage path. So I want to pull up a file explorer, and I'll go to where I'm putting file stores. I'll create a new one. I'll call this 2025 rkinerd tests, and I'll grab this path and I'll paste it in here. I guess I didn't copy it. And there's no spaces in this, so this is a safe path to pass it. If I did have spaces in this, I would want to surround this in quotes because spaces aren't friendly in a command environment like this. So we've got the init, the connection number, the name of the database, the connection number, the repository name, which I'm passing to it, which is the same as the database name in my case because I like to keep stuff consistent. And then there's the storage path. So with that command set, it's going to create the tables like we did with the previous initialization, and it's also going to add the files to the file store. And with that done, it's complete. So I could now look at this and do like connections list, and here's my test. It's no longer new connection, and we've got our stuff here. Now, what I want to do if I wanted to, jump into this environment is I would need to, refresh the app pool and have this, new repository added to Grooper, and I could jump in. So to do that, I would come into the IIS manager. I'd come to my app pool. I would refresh it, and now I could hop into Grooper through the thin client. I could click my repositories button, and I would want to, I guess, refresh this page. And I guess I probably need to not just refresh the app pool. I guess I need to go in and go to the sites and refresh the Grooper site itself. And with that done, I could refresh this, and I'm not seeing it show up. I'm probably just missing which thing I need to refresh exactly. Maybe the whole site. I could restart it. Yeah. And then refresh from here, and I should see it now. Yeah, there's my test there. So I just needed to refresh the actual full site, and maybe restarting it is different from refreshing. So that's what I needed to do. Okay, so now with that done, I can install services. So I'll go back to looking at that. So I'll look at help, and my commands for that are services. So I'll do help services. And I can see here I've got a bunch of commands for this. Now, really quickly, I did want to point out that at any point, if you want some more information on this, we've got a great article on the wiki. So if you were to do GCC or Grooper Command Console, we could go to this, and there's a really nice article with everything you would want to see about how to do this stuff. And as much help as this article is with all the stuff you need to know how to do, again, I want to emphasize the helpfulness of the help command. It gives us what we need to know. So if I want to list my services, I could start, stop, etc. Now what I want to do is install a service. So if I look here, I've got services, hosts, let's see, install. So what I'm going to do is I need to install on that connection 10, which we saw earlier with my new repository. I need a type name. So this will be import watcher and activity processing service, and then username, password, and thread count and queue name are optional, so I can leave those out. So I'll do services, install, connection number was 10. The type name is going to be activity processing service. So I can actually do shorthand here and just do act, and I can pass it my username and password. So I'll do that. And the password I want to obfuscate. So I'll put that question mark and add this here. So with that done, I've got an activity processing service on rkinerd test. and it is currently stopped, which we can see listed there. And I want to do the same command, so I can just press up, and instead of act, I can do import watcher. So I can do IMP and the same thing, and I'll put in my password. And now I've got an import watcher and a activity processing service. So now what I would want to do is go into Grooper and switch over to my test environment, which is the one I just made. If I now go to the design page and go to the machines tab, I can see I've got these two processes, or these two services here, the activity processing service and the import watcher. And what I could do is edit them from the property grid of Grooper Design, which is going to be the much preferred way to edit these than through GCC, because it's just more clear what we're doing here. I could start and stop these from here if I wanted to, so I could click the start button and it will update that. And I'm probably still putting in my password wrong. But anyway, we can see that this is where these services are listed in Grooper. And just to show you this as well, if you ever needed to change the password of the services in Grooper, what we'd want to do is go to the environment where the services are installed and use the Windows Services application. And I would go and find my activity processing instance, for example, which is the one I just created, instance 15, and I'd go to its properties and I would change the password and stuff here. That might be useful for certain situations if IT ever updates something like the password for a service account or whatever. That's a good place to know how to do that. Now, the last thing I want to show, and then we'll look at some questions here, is if there are some people that just really don't want to use a command prompt, I totally get it. It does offer a lot of power, like I said, because there are things you can automate a lot more quickly and easily with commands through things like BAT files, PS1 files, etc. But there has been someone in our fulfillment team that decided they wanted to make a wrapper for GCC. And before I show that off, I want to emphasize that this is not supported by development. It was made by someone in fulfillment because it was just something they wanted to do. It works really well. And if it's something that you want, be aware that there's really no support for it from development. And even the person that writes it, they did it kind of because they wanted to. So there's really no way to say, hey, this doesn't work the way I expect, etc. But if you really want it, I would encourage you to contact your sales representative, and they can get you in touch with who would be the person to get you this application. So in my environment, if I go to the program files and BIS and Grooper, I can see here I've got the GCC executable file, which we were just looking at, but this is the GCC UI that someone made. So if I were to run this, I could see I've got this little interface that is showing Grooper Command Console here at the bottom, and it's also showing us this stuff that we can see up here at the top. So we've got connections, we've got services, which again, it's just listing those. If I wanted to refresh this, I could add a new service instance, and I've got a thing here where I can put a password and a username. I can select which connection I want to use, and then the service type. Once I selected that, I can just cancel that. Again, with the connections, I could create that from here if I needed to test the connection. I've got a bunch of buttons that I can use this. So again, this is a handy little application that was made. It works really well. Again, if you want it, keep in mind it's not supported by development, and the person you'd need to reach out to get it would be your sales rep. So with that, I'm done with what I wanted to show, and I want to see if there's any questions from anybody.
No, there don't appear to be any right now. If you have any last minute, or last questions, you can go ahead and submit them now. But thank you, Randall. That was great.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to show it off. Grooper Command Console is pretty easy to use once you get the hang of it. Just using the help command to understand what you need, noting the difference between the required and not required commands. Obviously, check out that article on the wiki for more information about this, because it's quite handy. It's very thorough, gives you everything you need to know. And at the end of the day, Grooper Config, Grooper Command Console, it was something that was interacted with very infrequently. You don't create repositories all day, every day. You don't create and edit services all day, every day. It's usually like a one and done kind of situation. You get it done, and then you just start doing your work in Grooper. So anyway.
That's great. Thank you, Randall.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining us today. We hope this has given you a lot more insight into these two tools. Remember, we'll be sending out a link to you to this video recording in the next couple days, and we'll also add it to the Grooper YouTube channel. We encourage you to rewatch this or share it with your colleagues who would benefit. If you're ready to explore more about how Grooper can help you, please don't hesitate at all to reach out to myself, Randall, or anybody else in the Grooper team. But for now, thanks everybody and have a great day.